welcome and thank you for choosing to spend your quiet time with us. This audiobook novel is offered as a gentle companion designed to help weave a peaceful atmosphere around you as you unwind, creating a sanctuary of calm at the end of your day or whenever you seek a moment of deep serenity. We hope it serves as a soft place for your mind to rest. In Quiet Garden Dew on Ferns, we step into the hushed stillness of the Bramblewick Garden alongside Marion. Here, the earliest light of dawn illuminates tiny worlds in beads of dew, and the focus rests on the simple, profound beauty found in the awakening earth. You're invited to share in her quiet observation, noticing the subtle textures of leaves and the gentle sounds of a garden coming to life. Before you settle in fully and perhaps set your device aside, should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, you might consider a gentle like or subscription to the channel. It's a quiet way to help others find this space too. And now, allow yourself to relax, breathe easily, and begin the journey into this audiobook novel. Chapter 1. First Light on the Rose Trellis. The old wooden gate to the Bramblewick Garden murmured its familiar low creak as Marion pushed it inward. The sound, a soft groan of wood against a weathered hinge, was the first note in the quiet symphony of her morning ritual, a sound as ingrained in the garden's atmosphere as the scent of damp earth that now greeted her. She paused on the threshold, allowing her senses to adjust to the unique stillness of this secluded space, the air cool and carrying the faintest hint of last night's rain brushed against her face and bare arms, a refreshing welcome that seemed to cleanse away the lingering tendrils of sleep. A single deep breath drew in the complex perfume of the awakening garden, rich soil, the subtle sweetness of unseen blossoms, and an underlying green freshness that spoke of life quietly stirring. Her footsteps made a soft, deliberate crunch on the narrow gravel path that wound its way through the beds. It was a sound she knew well, a rhythm that accompanied her daily circuits, each step a gentle press into the small, rounded stones. The light was still nascent, a pearlescent wash in the eastern sky that had yet to fully declare itself as dawn. It was this in-between time, this hushed pause before the world fully woke, that Marion cherished most. The garden seemed to hold its breath, suspended in a delicate balance between night and day, shadow, and the promise of illumination. She moved with a slowness that matched this quietude, her presence, intended to be a part of the calm, not a disturbance to it. Her gaze drifted, as it often did first, to the intricate, almost invisible structures strung between the taller perennials. Dew-laden spiderwebs, masterpieces of overnight engineering, shimmered faintly in the pre-dawn glow. Each delicate thread was adorned with a string of perfect, minute spheres of moisture, tiny prisms that would later catch the sun. But for now, they were like whispered secrets, visible only to the attentive eye. She leaned closer to a particularly elaborate web stretched between two lavender stalks, admiring the precision, the almost impossible fineness of its construction. A gentle exhalation, carefully directed away from the fragile architecture, was the only sign of her appreciation. The path led her toward the western stone wall, where a climbing rose, its branches gnarled and ancient-looking, clung to a sturdy wooden trellis. This was a favored spot, a place where the first true rays of sun would eventually fall. Even now, in the dim light, the rosebush had a presence. Its leaves, a deep, healthy green, were edged with silver where the dew had collected most thickly. The buds, tightly furled promises of future blooms, were like small precious jewels, their colors soft pinks and creams muted and subtle in the current light. Marian reached out a careful finger, not quite touching, but feeling the cool aura around a particularly plump bud. She imagined the slow unfurling that would happen later, the gradual revelation of velvety petals. Around the base of the rose, other smaller plants huddled. A patch of forget-me-nots, their tiny blue flowers still mostly closed, formed a soft carpet. Droplets of water rested on their slightly fuzzy leaves, making them appear even softer. She noticed the way the light, though faint, was beginning to define the edges of things more clearly. A single leaf caught on a lower branch of the rose was no longer just a dark shape, but had a discernible outline, its serrated edge distinct against the shadowy backdrop of the wall. The stone of the wall itself, cool and textured, seemed to absorb the dim light, giving off a subtle grounding solidity. The air held the last traces of night-blooming jasmine, a fragrance that was sweeter and more pervasive in the darkness, now gently receding as the garden prepared for its daytime scents. Marian inhaled deeply again, trying to catch its fading perfume, a fleeting reminder of the hours just past. The quiet was profound, broken only by the almost inaudible sigh of the air moving through the leaves, or the distant sleepy chirp of a bird yet to fully rouse itself. It was a quiet, filled not with emptiness, but with potential, with the silent work of growth and awakening. She stood for a long moment, simply observing, allowing the peace of the Bramblewick Garden to settle over her. Her movements were minimal, her focus entirely external, absorbed in the minute details that unfolded before her. The slight chill in the air was pleasant, a reminder of the freshness of the new day. The gravel path felt solid and familiar beneath her feet. This initial tour, this greeting of the garden in its earliest moments, was a ritual of quiet connection, a way of attuning herself to the gentle unfolding beauty that awaited the sun's first direct touch. The garden was still, and Marian, in its embrace, found her own stillness mirrored back at her. The subtle shift was almost imperceptible at first, a slight lightening in the quality of the air, a barely noticeable increase in the visibility of distant textures. The eastern sky was beginning to blush with a warmer tone, a soft apricot hue spreading upwards from the horizon. The promise of true dawn was drawing nearer, and with it, a new chapter in the garden's morning story. Marian allowed a soft smile to touch her lips, a silent acknowledgement of the unfolding day. Chapter 2. The Language of Leaves. As the sun climbed, its ascent still gentle, its rays began to slant into the Bramblewick Garden, painting long, soft strokes of light across the dew-kissed foliage. Marian continued her slow perambulation, her attention now drawn to the intricate details of the leaves themselves, each a small testament to nature's artistry. The light, no longer the diffuse glow of pre-dawn, but a more directional, though still muted, sunshine, revealed textures and colors with a newfound clarity. She paused beside a clump of lamb's ear, its leaves famously soft and silver gray. She extended a finger, gently brushing the velvety surface, feeling the dense plush texture that gave the plant its name. Tiny droplets of dew clung to the fine hairs, making the leaves shimmer as if dusted with diamond powder. Nearby, a camellia bush stood glossy and robust, Its leaves were a stark contrast, dark green, smooth, and with a waxy sheen that reflected the morning light in bright, distinct patches. Marian traced the outline of one leaf with her fingertip, noting its slightly serrated edge and the strong central vein. Some leaves were perfectly formed. Others bore the tiny imperfections of a life lived outdoors, a small hole nibbled by an insect, a slight discoloration from the sun. Each detail contributed to the character of the plant, to the story it told of its quiet existence in this sheltered corner. She appreciated this inherent honesty, the lack of pretense in their natural forms. Her path, still the familiar soft crunch of gravel underfoot, led her to a more shaded area where a young maple seedling, a volunteer that she had decided to let grow, was unfurling its new leaves. These were a delicate, almost translucent green, their five-lobe shape still tender and slightly curled at the edges. She leaned closer, observing the intricate network of veins like a miniature road map spreading across each nascent leaf. The sunlight, filtering through the higher canopy of an older tree, cast dappled patterns that danced and shifted with the almost imperceptible movement of the air. It was in these small, quiet observations that Marian found a deep sense of connection, a feeling of being privy to the subtle, ongoing processes of growth. A single fallen leaf from an overhanging cherry tree lay on one of the flat path stones. It was a rich autumnal red, even though the season was still spring, perhaps a leaf that had clung on through winter, finally letting go. Marian stooped, picking it up. It was dry and brittle, its edges curled inward. She admired its precise curve, the way the colors faded from deep crimson to a lighter orange near the stem. For a moment, she held it, contemplating its journey, before gently placing it at the base of a nearby shrub, returning it to the cycle of the garden. The stone where it had rested felt cool and smooth beneath her fingers as she brushed away a tiny speck of clinging soil. The sounds of the garden were beginning to layer themselves, though none were intrusive. The distant, gentle coo of a waking wood pigeon provided a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to the nearer, almost silent rustle of her own movements. As she reached for her small, galvanized watering can, which she had left beside a terracotta pot the previous evening, the handle felt cool and solid in her grip. The can was empty, and she carried it towards the old outdoor tap, its form a familiar lightweight in her hand. The movement was unhurried, each step considered. She turned the brass tap, its surface worn smooth with use. The sound of water rushing into the metal can was a soft, drumming cascade, a refreshing sound that seemed to amplify the quiet of the morning. She watched the water level rise, the surface swirling and catching glints of light. When it was nearly full, she turned off the tap with the same deliberate motion. The sudden cessation of the water's flow made the other subtle sounds of the garden momentarily more apparent, the faint buzz of an early bee exploring a patch of flowering thyme, the whisper of a breeze through the higher leaves of the birch tree. Carrying the now heavier can, its weight balanced comfortably, she began to check the moisture levels in some of the potted plants. Beside a collection of terracotta pots, each a slightly different shade of warm earth, she knelt. The terracotta itself felt cool and slightly damp. She gently pushed a finger into the soil of a pot containing a fragrant rosemary bush. The earth yielded softly, cool and moist, just beneath the drier surface. It wouldn't need watering today. She moved to the next, a pot of trailing lobelia, its tiny blue flowers just beginning to open. Here the soil felt a little drier, and she decided it would benefit from a drink. The simple act of assessing, of touching the soil, was a direct communication with the needs of her plants, a language understood without words. This quiet engagement with the individual elements of the garden, leaf by leaf, plant by plant, deepened her appreciation for its complexity and resilience. Each texture, each shade of green, each subtle response to the changing light contributed to the rich tapestry of this small, cherished world. The gentle weight of the watering can, the coolness of the earth, the visual feast of patterns and forms, these were the sensations that grounded her in the present moment, making the Bramblewick Garden not just a place, but an experience of peaceful awareness. Chapter 3. Ferns and Filtered Sunshine. Marian directed her steps towards the northern corner of the Bramblewick Garden, a space that received less direct sunlight and consequently fostered a lusher, more verdant growth. Here, beneath the protective overhang of an old, gracefully arching birch tree, a variety of ferns thrived, their delicate fronds creating a tapestry of green in countless shades and textures. The air in this part of the garden always felt a degree cooler, imbued with the damp, earthy scent of humus and the distinct, fresh aroma of the ferns themselves. It was like stepping into a miniature, shaded woodland, a haven of cool tranquility. The sunlight, now more established in the sky, had to negotiate its way through the dense leaves of the birch. It arrived in this ferny enclave not as direct beams, but as a soft, filtered cascade, creating a constantly shifting dappled pattern on the fronds below and the mossy ground. Marian found a semi-clear patch of earth and settled herself carefully, content to simply sit and observe for a while. The soft crunch of the gravel path was replaced here by the quieter sound of leaf litter compressing slightly beneath her. Her gaze was drawn to the intricate structures of the ferns, some were the classic shuttlecock ferns, their fronds arching outwards from a central crown, resembling a feathery green fountain. Others were more delicate, like the maidenhair fern, with its fine black stems and fan-shaped leaflets that trembled with the slightest breath of air. She watched, fascinated, as a tiny, almost imperceptible breeze, perhaps just a current of cooler air settling, caused the maidenhair leaflets to flutter like a host of miniature green butterflies. Many of the ferns were still in process of unfurling their new season's growth. Tightly coiled croziers, often called fiddleheads for their resemblance to the scroll of a violin, pushed up from the earth. Some were still densely packed, covered in fine silvery hairs or brownish scales depending on the species. Others had begun their slow, elegant unfurlment, the tip still curled but the lower part of the frond already expanding, revealing the nascent leaflets packed neatly within. Marian marveled at this ancient, predetermined pattern of growth, a slow-motion ballet of botanical emergence. She leaned closer to one such fiddlehead, observing the almost geometric precision of its coil. Yeah, dewdrops were particularly abundant in this shaded, humid corner. They clung tenaciously to the intricate leaflets of the fully open fronds, each tiny sphere a perfect miniature lens reflecting the dappled light and the surrounding greenery. She watched one particularly large droplet perched precariously on the tip of a leaflet. It trembled slightly, holding its form for a long moment. Then, with a sudden tiny surrender to gravity, it slid smoothly down the gentle curve of the leaflet, tracing a silver path before dropping silently onto a lower frond where it merged with another droplet, becoming something new. This small, silent drama held her attention completely. The patterns of light and shadow were endlessly fascinating here, as the sun climbed higher or as the leaves of the birch tree shifted subtly. The patches of light on the ferns would move and change shape. A particular frond might be momentarily illuminated, its green suddenly vibrant, before being cast back into soft shadow. This interplay created a sense of quiet dynamism, a gentle, living mosaic that was never quite the same from one moment to the next. Marian let her eyes relax, taking in the overall effect, the layers of green, the soft diffusion of light. The mossy ground beneath the ferns also caught her eye. Different varieties of moss grew in patches, some forming dense emerald cushions, others spreading like a fine velvety carpet over the earth and the exposed roots of the birch. She reached out and touched a patch of cushion moss. It felt cool, springy, and surprisingly resilient. Tiny, almost invisible water droplets were caught within its dense structure, giving it a fresh, damp feel. The scent of the moss, combined with the ferns and the damp earth, was deeply calming, an ancient perfume of undisturbed places. She remained there for some time, lost in the quiet observation of this green world. There was no need for action, no task to perform, simply the gentle act of being present. The only sounds were the very soft rustle of leaves high in the birch tree, the occasional distant call of a bird, and the almost inaudible drip of moisture from a saturated frond onto the ground below. It was a place of deep peace where the complexities of the outside world seemed to fade away, replaced by the simple, profound beauty of the ferns and their softly lit domain. The coolness of the air, the gentle visual rhythms of light and shade, and the intricate details of plant life all contributed to a sense of serene immersion. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Watering Can. The warmth of the sun, now a more definite presence in the Bramblewick Garden, was beginning to gently kiss the dew from the leaves and petals. The air, while still fresh, carried a hint of the day's growing heat. Marian rose from her contemplative spot amongst the ferns, the imprint of the cool earth a faint sensation against her clothes. It was time to offer a drink to those plants that required it. She retrieved her galvanized watering can, its surface now warmed slightly where the sun had touched it. The metal felt smooth and familiar in her grasp as she carried it back to the old tap. Again, the sound of water filling the can provided a momentary focus, a rush of cool liquid that seemed to underscore the garden's prevailing quiet. She let it fill almost to the brim, the weight increasing steadily in her hand, a grounding, purposeful heaviness. The water sloshed softly inside as she carefully lifted the full can, its spout pointing slightly downwards, ready to dispense its life-giving contents. She moved with a practiced ease, her balance accustomed to the shifting weight. Her first stop was a terracotta pot brimming with vibrant red geraniums, their leaves slightly dusty from the previous day. She tilted the can, and a silvery stream of water flowed from the rose at the end of the spout, showering the soil around the base of the plants. The water made a soft, hissing sound as it met the dry earth, quickly darkening the terracotta soil to a rich chocolate brown. Small droplets splashed onto the lower leaves of geraniums, glistening like tiny jewels for a moment before either rolling off or being absorbed. She watched as the water wicked outwards from the point of impact, spreading through the thirsty soil. Next, she attended to a small bed of newly planted pansies, their cheerful faces turned toward the sun. Here, the soil was looser, and the water sank in more rapidly, leaving little pools that quickly vanished. She was careful to water gently, avoiding washing away the fine soil from around their delicate roots. The scent of damp earth rose more strongly now, a clean, fundamental perfume that Marian always found reassuring. The simple act of providing water, of meeting this basic need, brought a quiet sense of purpose. She moved from plant to plant, her movements economical and unhurried. A young clematis climbing a small obelisk received a generous share, its slender stems seeming to thirst for the moisture. Then a patch of herbs, mint, thyme, and oregano, their leaves releasing a subtle burst of fragrance as the water droplets disturbed their surfaces. The mint, in particular, offered up a sharp, refreshing scent that mingled pleasantly with the smell of wet soil. She paused for a moment, inhaling the combined aromas. The weight of the watering can gradually lessened as she made her rounds. The sound of the water changed too, from a full, steady pour to a lighter sprinkle as the level dropped. Each plant seemed to receive the offering in its own way. Some, like the broad-leafed hostas in a shadier spot, had leaves that channeled the water directly towards their roots. Others, with finer foliage, seemed to catch and hold the droplets for a longer time, the moisture clinging to every surface. She noticed the way the sunlight, now shining more directly into parts of the garden, interacted with the water. A stream pouring from the spout would catch the light, momentarily transformed into a glittering arc. Droplets on leaves sparkled with an intense, brief fire. These small, fleeting moments of beauty were part of the quiet satisfaction of the task. There was no rush, no pressure, just the rhythmic movement of watering, observing, and moving on. When the can was nearly empty, she gave the last of its contents to a small potted lavender bush, its silvery leaves already fragrant in the growing warmth. The water gurgled slightly as the last of it left the spout. She set the empty can down on the gravel path, the sound a gentle metallic clink. A sense of completion, of a small but necessary duty fulfilled, settled over her. The plants, their thirst quenched, seemed to stand a little straighter, their colors subtly more vibrant against the backdrop of the now uniformly damp soil. Marian straightened up, brushing a stray piece of leaf from her sleeve. She looked around at the watered sections of the garden, a quiet contentment in her expression. The dark patches of moist earth were a visual confirmation of her care. The air felt refreshed, the subtle humidity from the watering adding to the garden's gentle atmosphere. This simple ritual, repeated countless times, never lost its quiet charm, its ability to connect her to the fundamental rhythms of growth and nurture. Chapter 5. A Moment on the Stone Bench. With the morning's primary tending completed, the watering can resting empty on the path, Marian moved towards an old stone bench tucked into a relatively sunny alcove, sheltered by a tall hedge of fragrant mock orange. The bench, made of thick, weathered slabs of stone, was a permanent fixture in the Bramblewick Garden, a place for pause and quiet contemplation. Its surface, though warmed slightly by the encroaching sun, still retained a core coolness from the night, a pleasant sensation as she settled onto it. Moss grew in the deeper crevices between the stones, a testament to its age, and integration into the garden's ecosystem. From her pocket, she retrieved a small insulated flask and a simple ceramic cup. Unscrewing the lid of the flask released a gentle waft of steam, carrying the subtle, comforting aroma of herbal tea chamomile and a hint of lemon balm, a blend she favored for its calming properties. She poured a small amount into the cup, the pale golden liquid looking warm and inviting in the morning light. Holding the cup in both hands, she allowed its warmth to seep into her palm, a comforting counterpoint to the coolness of the stone beneath her. She took a slow, deliberate sip. The tea was warm, not hot, and its gentle flavor was soothing. From this vantage point, the garden unfolded before her as a complete picture. The light was brighter now, the shadows shorter and more defined. The colors of the flowers, the vibrant reds of the geraniums she had just watered, the deep blues of the delphiniums standing tall against the stone wall, the soft yellows of a sprawling potentilla seemed to glow with a quiet intensity. The different greens of the foliage, from the deep, glossy green of the camellia to the bright, almost lime green of new fern fronds, created a rich and varied tapestry. The sounds of the garden were more layered now, a gentle symphony of quiet activity. The hum of bees, busy amongst the open blossoms of the mock orange and the lavender, was a constant, soothing undertone. Birds were more active too. A robin hopped across a patch of lawn just beyond the flower beds, its head cocked, listening for unseen movements in the soil. The occasional chirp and flutter from the dense hedge behind her spoke of smaller, unseen birds going about their morning. The distant, rhythmic click of a lawnmower from a neighboring garden, usually a sound she might find intrusive, today seemed to blend into the background, softened by distance and the enclosing peace of her own sanctuary. A light breeze, barely more than a sigh of air, rustled the leaves of the birch tree, causing the dappled sunlight on the ground to shift and dance. She watched the subtle movement, the way individual leaves would tremble and turn, catching the light for a moment before settling back into place. A few petals, loosened by the breeze from the mock orange blossoms, drifted down like soft white snowflakes, landing silently on the grass and the stone path. Marian continued to sip her tea slowly, her gaze drifting from one part of the garden to another, not focusing on any one thing for too long, but taking in the whole. She noticed the way a tendril of honeysuckle was reaching out from the hedge, its tip questing for something to climb. She saw a ladybug, a tiny speck of bright red, making its slow way up the stem of a rose. These small, quiet dramas of the garden, often overlooked, were a source of gentle fascination for her. The stone bench felt solid and enduring beneath her. The warmth of the sun on her face and arms was pleasant, a gentle caress. There was a profound sense of peace in this simple act of sitting, observing, and being present. The tasks of the morning were done. Now was the time for quiet appreciation, for allowing the atmosphere of the garden to seep into her. A deep, simple contentment, unlooked for but always welcome, settled with her like a soft blanket. The cup was empty now, its warmth faded. Marian placed it carefully beside her on the bench. She leaned back slightly, resting against the cool stone, and closed her eyes for a moment, just listening. The sounds of the garden, the warmth of the sun, the lingering scent of flowers and damp earth, all combined to create a deeply soothing sensory experience. The Bramblewick Garden in these quiet morning hours was truly her sanctuary, a place where the simple act of being was enough. The day stretched ahead, unhurried, and for now, this moment of peaceful stillness was perfect.